there's more than one way to play this voiceover game. And in fact, the longer that I'm in the industry and the more voice actors that I have the opportunity to speak with, the more that I'm learning about all the different ways there are to get things done. And my guest today is absolutely proof of that. And his story is one that I think could inspire many of us to try some different approaches and come at things from a different angle. His clients include Samsung, Amazon, and BMW. Welcome to the show, Michael Everhard.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So how does a British voice actor end up in Mexico by way of Korea?
Well, first you have to meet a very specific woman and then marry that woman. And then
There's always a woman.
there's always a woman. And then she'll take you around the world, basically. And so she's an international school teacher. And she got a job here in Mexico City a couple of years ago. And now out we came. And here we are. And I can confirm the food is incredible.
There you go. I mean, at the end of the day, it's what keeps a guy happy.
Yeah,
More often than not, right?
Tacos, fine. I'm fine.
Yep. Hey, I just finished eating nachos for the second night in a row, and
there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, 7 nights you've got a problem. 2 nights,
yes,
is fine.
2 nights now we're fine.
Yeah.
So you started acting at 13, is that correct?
Yeah, I did a lot of community theatre as a 13-year-old. That was so long ago. And it's just something I've always been interested in, and it led me to working on holiday parks in the UK, which is something North Americans maybe don't really know much about, but it's kind of like a caravan park with an entertainment hall and things. Did some singing there, and went to university, and it's always been something I do wherever I go. It's a great way, when you work as a teacher abroad, which is what I did in 2012. It's a great way to meet new people, and you find your people, but you find you find some weirdos, but you find some really great people to spend time with, and that camaraderie of a theater community and putting on a show together when you're paid no money, but you do it for the love of performing. And if you're lucky, the quality's good, and we had lots of great people. It's just a great way to meet people and share passions. And because of this, when I was in Korea, I met someone, Barry Savaris, who got me into voice acting. And I've been acting since I was 13, but I never really got into the voice acting. And she took me into her agency, and then I was sat in studios I had no right to be in. Other than the fact that I had this accent that was, not sought after. It feels a bit strong, but certainly some clients wanted a British voice, and
sure,
there I was in this huge studio with like a cinema screen that they were previewing it on. It was absolute madness.
So how do you end up the British Learning Voice? Like, you literally own the website, britishlearningvoice.com. And I always teach voice actors that, you play to your strengths, you use the things that you have from your past or whatever, but you leaned into that very hard. So tell us how you ended up as the British Learning Voice.
Well, in Korea, that was a lot of the work that I was doing to begin with, was ESL training. The man is next to the tree, etc. And that was a lot of, that's how I learned all my mic technique and stuff, is from engineers going too loud, too fast, too slow, whatever.
Interesting.
And so we're talking hundreds and hundreds of hours of kind of dialogues and tests and things like that. And then I started training in corporate e-learning. I got some work with BMW and stuff like that. And then I saw that British e-learning voiceover was available as a domain.
What are the odds?
I felt like someone had missed a trick, or the number of times I checked the spelling to make sure that it was real was insane. But yeah, I ended up getting that, and yeah, why wouldn't I take it?
So you were able to lean into that background that you have with teaching and use that as a value proposition to play into that genre and book some work that way.
Absolutely. A lot of my marketing as a former teacher, and I make no bones about it. An ESL teacher is very different to the real teaching that my wife does. But
Right.
there's some arguments to be made that the ESL is more performative,
Hmm.
and you're assuming a role,
Yep.
albeit maybe a clownish role. Um, yeah, so I think that there's a lot of shared skills between those two jobs.
I'm having a bit of a, this is going to date me, but I'm having a bit of a Robin Williams Good Morning Vietnam moment here. I'm picturing, you've seen the movie, I'm assuming,
Absolutely.
and Robin Williams, and when he takes over the class to try to meet the girl and he's teaching them English, and
Yeah.
then I'm picturing Michael standing there teaching and thinking, I wonder if it was anything like Robin Williams in Good Morning Vietnam.
Well, sadly, no. I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting working in South Korea and working with students, teaching students from such a higher socioeconomic background than myself. And they're like, "Teacher, you are poor." Yeah, I know, man. You don't even have a car. Yeah, my dad has 2 Mercedes. But their English was excellent, so you know they
Must have
still
been a
got
good
an A.
teacher then.
Yeah, exactly.
So now we transition. If I surveyed 100 voice actors about their dream genre, I'm guessing 96 out of 100 of them are going to say gaming or animation or both. That's where so many people ultimately want to end up. So talk about why you love gaming so much and how that has become a genre that you are now very actively pursuing after being the British learning voice.
Well, I mean, I've played video games since they were 2 colors on a ZX Spectrum or a Commodore 64. So if you're talking about,
Where in the world is
revealing
Carmen
your age.
Sandiego? I can't even tell you how much time I spent playing that on a Commodore
Yeah.
64 when I was a kid.
Well, yeah, the Commodore 64 was the North American computer, and then in the UK we had the ZX Spectrum, and so I've been playing video games, computer games, PC games, whatever, for
Yep.
decades, and I imagine the things I could have achieved if I hadn't. But but also how much fun I was having, so it doesn't
That's
matter so
right.
much.
It all
Exactly.
balances out in the end.
Yeah, I wouldn't change a thing.
Now you're a
Um,
jet-setting, globe-trotting voice actor. Like, it's all in how you pitch it, man. It makes it sound incredibly exotic.
Exactly. No one needs to know how many hours I spent on Football Manager. No one needs to know that, especially not my wife. But yeah, so I've loved video games for so long. And I mean, I got to do a couple of them. I was lucky enough to do a couple of video games when I was working in South Korea at some studios, and all the grunts and the noises. But I mean, I don't think they really appreciated what a British voice was, and I think a lot of the accents kind of melded with North Americans. And if you can hire a North American to do 10 voices, and 2 of them are passable British, you don't need to spend
Right.
money on a British guy. So like, I felt like I was missing out on a few things, even though I had a more authentic or an authentic voice. So that was something that I really, really, really wanted to do. And then since then, I've been looking on like Facebook. I see there's a lot on Twitter as well. Casting calls. Now the rates aren't super high, but I think there's potential to earn. I mean, there's a few voice actors who just earn a good living just off indie games.
Sure.
Um, and so when I was looking online, I saw this post on Facebook. Sadly, I've been trying to leave that platform for so long, but I keep getting work off of it. So I mean, I can't be too picky. But yeah, and they were looking for a voice actor to voice a character in an indie video game, and that's kind of really all I knew about it. And then I got in contact with them, and I had like a quick Zoom call with the head of the studio, Golden Horde Studio. Link down below in the description, probably not. And
Now everybody's going to contact them.
That's okay. I mean, but the cool thing is that they were looking for a voice for this character, and they hadn't really fleshed it out yet. I think they knew what they wanted, but when I came in with my history of stage performance and things like that, I had lots of voices. I had lots of characters, and so I grabbed a character from I was the lead in the Moliere play The Hypochondriac, and I used this voice for the whole play. So I kind of knew it inside and out. And as soon as I
Okay.
read the lines of this character, I was like, oh, definitely, this is the right voice for this character. And then I was able to improvise. I was able to chat to the leader, the head of the studio in character. And what happened then was I don't know exactly. He'd be better to tell you what drew him to the voice, but like he was super keen.
Okay.
And then once we were chatting and he realized that I'd been a performer and a writer, he was like, let's work on this character a bit together. Now he's very much the man who created the character, but in terms of a bit more flesh on the bones, and there's certainly some of my own personality in there as well, I was given a huge amount of freedom. When they send scripts through, I always obviously read it verbatim, but then I'll
Okay.
throw a few things on there. And they're really one of the things about working with this kind of indie studio is how welcoming they are, and it reminds me of community theatre, in that how collaborative it is, how everyone's kind of doing their jobs, but no one's stopping you from being like, oh, what's that? So I'm learning a lot about the nuts and bolts of the industry just by being allowed. I mean, you speak to people who've done video games for AAAs or whatever like that. You're never on the Zoom call for the production meeting for the and for someone like me who's a huge video game fan, that's fascinating and insightful, and it actually can teach you a lot about people who might be your potential buyers.
So let's back up a second.
Hmm.
Initially, you said you found the post on Facebook. So this is a developer that you've been following on Facebook, I'm assuming, and
No,
they
it was
posted
just
on it.
a random post. I think I may have just searched on Facebook groups for looking for British voiceover, uh,
Okay.
and it popped up in one of the groups. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure that's how I found them.
So
Um,
did you did you submit something first and then they invited you to a call or
I sent him a message on Facebook that turned into an email and then he shared a script, and
okay.
then I took a run at the script, and then he came back to me and was like, yes.
That this is the guy. So I want to get more into how did you go from the voice actor who answered the ad? How did that land into the voice actor who's now working on writing and being a part of the team? Like that's not what the post was for. I'm assuming that's not what the post was for.
No.
So was that just personalities just meld together and it just made sense? Was it I want to do this to get deeper insight into the industry and research purposes? Was it this is how we're going to form a partnership and make this work until the game launches? Like I'd love to hear a little bit more about that specific side of things.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it was definitely a partnership. I wasn't quite sure at the beginning what it was going to be. And so, like, the terms of, I was given a contract and I'm given a profit share. And, when the game turns a profit, I'll be paid for my session time and things like that. So it will hit industry standards. But I think a lot of what's going on right now, certainly in the indie game industry, is like you see companies like Ubisoft that they just laid off hundreds of people, hundreds of developers, and so it's not really a stable business. It can be an unstable business for these people that work behind the scenes, and what Golden Horde are doing, and loads of other indie studios, is it's kind of like a co-op where you all
Okay.
work together, and all the people, myself included, we have work that we do most of the time, but we're offering a bit of our time a week or when necessary, to collaborate on this game. And I think there's a real boom of it right now. So there's a company called Cave Bear Games, and although some of the people that are with Cave Bear have never worked in video games before. Some of them have worked for Rockstar and Ubisoft. It's like, so there's lots of mentorship going on. There's lots of, it's a really beautiful and exciting thing, especially for someone like me who's, already given up my time for free so many hours and hours for community theater. To have this now, um, it's such a really wholesome atmosphere of growth for all of us. And as I say, like, you know, some of these people have worked for Rockstar. They're legit. Like, we've got some
Yep.
really legitimate people, and I'd like to say myself included. That like all these people are professionals, but we're working on a passion project together. And even when I started years ago, I was always more interested in working on, I want to work with talented people on something they love. Obviously I want to make money. Obviously, I want to run my business. But what really excites me is working with someone who loves the project. And that's what I get from working on Shoney Island, is the name of the video game. Yeah, that's what I get from working with them and speaking to Cave Bear Games. And Astrarium is another studio that's just working with people on a volunteer basis. But there's so many connections from all these people all over the world, from all different levels of industry. And who's to say that that doesn't lead to, and it has led to, full-time work or project-based work, because people can vouch for people, and that goes a long way.
It's an interesting model because, I mean, to me, it feels almost like a royalty share audiobook type deal, right? Like, you succeed, you make money if the book makes money, and if the book doesn't make money, you don't make money, which maybe doesn't seem like the greatest deal up front when you're doing audiobooks and you're spending all that time in the studio. But if you get the right book that gets
Right.
the right sales, it can be potentially lucrative. So I'm curious about this profit share concept then. Is that something that they pitched to you, or is that something that you said, well, what if we did this? Or, like, if the budget's not there, what if we did it that way?
Yeah, it was pitched to me.
Okay.
That was pitched to me. Yeah.
So is it kind of
Which,
like an equity, like almost like having shares in a company, basically?
yeah, I mean, certainly for that game. I mean, it'd be great to have shares in the company. But I think certainly for a role like myself, who knows what their next game would be and
Right.
whether they even require a British voice and stuff. Whereas the people like the marketing and the design team and everyone like that, the sky's the limit for them. But, like, when you talk about the royalty share and, if you get the right book, if you look at a game like, I mean, the biggest example is Minecraft. I
Mhm.
mean, that was a one-man show. If you keep the team tight, and then a profit share could potentially be incredibly lucrative
Sure.
with the right game. You look at something like Stardew Valley. That's one man in his room. His wife supported him for 8 years. He's a bajillionaire now from this, like, very pixel art game that's just sold millions.
It's such an interesting concept because I think voiceover from an industry standpoint, we get so hung up on, GVA rate guide or Gravy for the Brain rate guide or whatever. And industry standard rates this and SAG card that and blah 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 blah. That sometimes I think it creates a tunnel vision scenario where we only see that way forward to do a thing. It's either you give me industry rates or I don't do the job. And it seems like this feels more like startup culture.
Yeah,
Like, you get
absolutely.
into the right startup, in the beginning, everybody's eating ramen and nobody knows what's going to happen. And then if the startup hits, everybody retires with millions when they sell their shares when it IPOs. It's a similar kind of thing where you take the shot with, if you find the right developer, you find the right game, whatever it is, you get on with the right team, and you take your shot and see what happens. And I mean, for you, obviously you have a love of games, so it's not a stretch for you. Like, you're working on a passion project in that sense, that you're working on this passion genre, but it's a really different kind of way to approach things that I think probably not a lot of voice actors are thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the numbers, currently, maybe not great, but, like, as far as I'm concerned, I'm working on a computer game where the character has I'm invested a lot in this character.
Mhm.
I'm learning loads of new tricks for marketing and things like from the marketing people,
Sure.
because I'm in a lot of the group chats, so I can see how they ramp it up, when they ramp it up. So there's lots of nuts and bolts things that are definitely applicable to my business. Um, and yeah, just techniques and, oh, this isn't working, so let's try this. And at Christmas, I pitched an idea for my character singing parodies of Christmas songs to promote the game at Christmas. And even though the game isn't out yet, there's a Discord server with lots of enthusiastic people and game testers and all these kind of fun people who are super into it. And yeah, and we're all having a great time. And I'm pitching stuff, what does work, what doesn't. So even though maybe I'm not earning a lot of money from it currently, I'm in terms of information and insight into marketing and things like that, I'm learning absolutely tons.
Well, and there's so much value in that. And I guess that's part of the whole joke in the voiceover industry, and we've all been there. We've all probably said it or fallen for it at some point. Is the look? I don't have any money to pay you for this job, but if you'll give me this one, I promise I'm going to get you the exposure. The next job, that's going to be the one, right? Like we've all heard
Yep.
some variation of that and fallen for it before, and so then it's like exposure doesn't pay the rent, and I've said that before, and I'm guilty of saying something like that, but as I listen to you talk about being a part of the team and the education that you're getting out of all of this, but also the relationships that you're
Yeah.
building, there's huge value in that, right? Like I'm guessing, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I'm guessing the indie game community in some senses is probably very similar to the voiceover community. We all know each other. We all talk to each other. We all have relationships with each other. When I need a British voice and I can't do it, I've got a group of people that I refer to. And when, and like, so it, on it goes down the line as we pay forward or whatever. So I'm guessing there's an element of that potentially comes into the mix here too. Like this is not going to be the last project that you work on as a result of this project that you're working on.
Absolutely. And it feels like, I mean, especially with games, the content just increases and increases. So like, we'll go into early access, which is not the finished game, but it's just a part of the Steam where the developers can make a bit of money to keep the lights on, to keep
Right.
marketing, to build and build before the 1.0 comes out. And so, although, I mean, what's it? 6 months ago, 7 months ago, I started being involved in Shoney Island, and who knows how long this is going to go on for. And in terms of marketing, like Sean wants to do a podcast where I'm in character in that podcast. Whether I'm interviewing people or he's interviewing me in character, and so there's lots of just like fun ways to express yourself creatively. Um, yeah, and just I'm all about insight into this industry is just so fascinating, and I can't see how it won't benefit me
That peek
when
behind
I
the curtain,
approach.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
When you have a better understanding of all of the background nuts and bolts of how all of this stuff comes together, to me that just makes it easier for you to figure out for the next company that you reach out to or the next game that you try to get a part of. Like you can talk about it on a level that other voice actors would not be able to talk about it, which immediately demonstrates value, credibility, right? All of those things that really would speak. So there's, oh man, again, there's so much value in that.
Yeah, for studios that will allow a collaborative nature, and I'm not sure how widespread that is. I mean, obviously the AAAs would be like, "Oh, cute, the voiceover thinks he's a writer," and
Yeah, you're not
writers
going
are
out and
right.
pitching this to whatever Blizzard
Yeah,
or
of
Rockstar or
course,
whatever,
of
of
course,
course.
but
But
yeah, but so when we're in like the indie game scene, yeah, I think there's a lots of room for collaboration, and it's what gets everyone fired up.
so does this open the door? And you'll have to excuse my ignorance, but I hear more and more voice actors talking about getting into cons and being able to go and do cons when they get a character on a game and stuff like that. Does like if a game hits the right way, does it open up a door to something like that?
I mean, I mean, possibly. It depends. It depends on the game. But I think that's more the AAA realm, and certainly a lot of these indie games, you know, some of them might not be able to afford voice actors.
Right.
So that's why this scenario works well for all of us. Because if the game turns a profit, then I'm going to get paid. It's not like, it's like as you say, a royalty share. Um, but if I'd stuck to my guns on payment and stuff, all the stuff I would have missed out
Yeah, everything that's
on,
happened in between. Yeah.
everything that's happened in between, like, sadly, you can't put a price on it.
So what are some of the tips or tricks that you've picked up along the way that you're like, oh my gosh, that insight made this experience worth it because now I know how that works, or now I know to try this, or has there been moments like that where you've picked up something and thought, man, that was worth the price of admission?
um, I think it's just about seeing. It's certainly the marketing and when so I'm in like we don't have Slack, it's called Discord, which
Hmm.
obviously all the gamers listening will know.
Yep.
But so there's lots of different like rooms. And so you go into the design room and you just see how something starts from a pencil sketch, like a
Yep.
super beautiful pencil sketch, and then it goes into the software, and then it goes into the renderer, and then it goes into the game. And while obviously this isn't super helpful to my business, my eyes are on stalks. I mean, I wish I could draw. I wish I had those talents. And just being able to see how that progresses, um, I think is super insightful. And I'm sure I'll get to use that knowledge eventually, right?
It makes me think about, because I mean, I've had conversations with voice actors who have done video games before who are losing their minds because they just want to be able to talk about it, but they can't talk about it. And when you get that peek behind the curtain, you start to understand that it's not like we're making these things in a month, like
Yeah.
months, years, whatever, that go into that whole entire development side. And then it gives you a new appreciation for what's going on. So would you do this approach again, given the
Um,
opportunity?
Absolutely. I mean, I can't handle 10 of these.
Simultaneously.
Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I mean, what I'm working on at Shoney Island, I mean, I foresee me working on this for at least a couple of years,
Nice.
just because of the content
Yep.
that they're working on. And and you work on some content, and then it might get scrapped, and so like there's loads of opportunities uh, for me to flex my voice muscles, but at the end of the day, and this is what's so cool about it, and the same with community theatre, you work hard and you get to see the wonderful thing that you created, and to have some kind of ownership or be a part of that. My 10-year-old playing a ZX Spectrum, his mind would be blown that I get
Right.
to do this and sit in on the meetings and
Yep.
do a silly voice. And yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about the game. I know it's not out yet, so we're recording February, but the game's out in March, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it should be mid-March, but these dates are so fluid. But yeah, mid-March
Okay.
is the plan. It's it's a PC game,
Okay.
and it's a spiritual successor to a game from I think it was late 90s. I loved it. It was called Black and White, and it was these were super popular in the 90s, early 2000 God games. And so you got a hand, and you're just moving your people around and helping them find uh, wood and all the things they might need, the food. Um, and so it's kind of like a God simulator,
Okay.
where you move them around this beautiful countryside, mountainous area. And then as part of the tutorial, my character, Howard, is just a bit of a dick. And I was allowed to be quite horrible, not too horrible, but just a bit cheeky
Right.
to the person playing it, and we had loads of fun with that, and loads of stuff we couldn't use. And Yeah, yeah. So anyone listening who knows what a God game is, or the game Black and White, it's It's kind of like, I guess it's kind of like The Sims as well in some
Okay.
ways.
Yep.
You're kind of creating this village around your little characters, and you want them to be happy and thrive, and they're more efficient, and resource management and that kind of thing. You know, when you say it out loud, it sounds really boring, but I promise you that when you're actually playing it, it's wonderful.
I downloaded I can't even remember what the game's called, but it's a city builder game off
Uh,
of the App Store, the Apple Arcade. And I am not, generally speaking, I'm not allowed to have access to games because I have kind of an addictive personality that I know that if I start playing a game, forget it. Like I will totally block out everything else. It will be gone, and I will just spend all of my time falling down that rabbit hole. So there's no gaming systems in the house or anything like that. But I downloaded this city builder game, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, and man, I will hit the couch like 10 o'clock at night and start farting around with it. And then the next thing I know, it's like, oh shoot, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Like I need to go to
that
bed.
is
And it's
the
exactly what you're
perils of
talking
video
about,
games. That's
right?
the
It's
perils of
like,
video games.
it shouldn't be that fun or addictive or whatever, but you just get going and then all of a sudden it's 4 hours later and you're like, oops.
I mean, but with those phone ones, it's a science to keep your brain firing, and they're like, oh, they give you a little something, and you're like, oh, I'm going to play it for another 30 minutes, and you know.
So if there's talk to the voice actor who's listening to this and is thinking, okay, this is cool. I would be down for this sort of a collaborative approach, or this sort of partnership approach to an indie game or something like that. Whether it's just because it's a game they're passionate about, or they're trying to build some credits and looking for an in, or whatever it is. But do you have any tips for how to approach that? Like in this case, they suggested it to you. Would you consider doing it that way? But maybe there's developers out there who have never thought that way before about using a voice actor. So a voice actor goes and says, hey, I'm interested in doing this. And they say, well, we don't have a budget. Voice actor says, have you ever thought about this? Any tips for how to approach that conversation, or who is even the right person to talk to have that conversation?
Well, I would encourage them to look on LinkedIn, a group called Cave Bear Games.
Okay.
And I don't know how many unsolicited emails from voiceovers they're going to get because of this, so I'm sorry. Sorry to them, but yeah, I mean, that's what that they found. The studio, or the head of our studio met with their leader, Ayla Derek, and yeah, and so she had like a following or followers, maybe a couple of thousand followers on LinkedIn, and she started boosting our posts. She started, supporting us, sharing our stuff, and she now, her company, Cave Bear Games, they oversee a lot of indie developers,
Okay.
whether they're people that want to be producers, people that want to
Gotcha.
be designers, and that would be the place to maybe put yourself in a pool of talent that might get picked up, for the right thing. So, with Shoney Island, it was just a perfect fit for the voice that I had and the character that Sean had in his head. And, possibly at Cave Bear Games, they'll be in a situation where there might be opportunities.
I have to tell you that when you said how you found this game, I was not expecting you to say Facebook.
Yeah, no,
like,
no.
I was not expecting that to be even in the top 5 or top 10 places of where that would have came up. But it's good to hear you say that because maybe it's a place that people are overlooking or whatever. But the idea of just doing some strategic searches based on your skill set, your language, your accent, whatever, and doing those searches in places like X or Facebook or searching groups or something like that. It's a really smart way to try and potentially find some of these opportunities, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, actually, the last 2 passion projects. I mean, I'm not willing to just do anything for free, but but the last 2 projects that I have done have been Shoney Island and this beautiful stop motion animation that I found. This guy was in a Korean filmmakers group that I hadn't left from my time in Korea, and he was looking for a voice actor for this stop motion animation. And it's beautiful at him. I saw the full clip of it, the full 10-minute short the other night. I think it might be one of the best things I've ever been involved in.
Nice.
And I found it on Facebook. So aggravating that I can't leave it. But how the two wonderful things. They haven't bought me many tacos, but they've bought me a lot of joy. And and I couldn't have done it without Mark Zuckerberg for some reason.
Well, and hey, the story's not done yet, right? Because
Exactly.
who knows
Well,
with this game, who knows where that ends up?
Right.
Even with this short film that you worked on, who's to say that this guy creating this short film doesn't end up doing another project and it ends up hitting because of the success of this short film, right?
Absolutely.
And that one thing leads to another, so you never know. So the stories aren't done on those yet. So this is.
I think what I've learned, if anything, is just blindly take projects for free, with no discerning taste whatsoever. No, but you're right. Facebook doesn't seem like the most likely area. I mean, I see a lot of game auditions on X.
Yeah.
And which hopefully transfers to Blue Sky eventually. And, there seems to be a real big community now. The money's not there, but the volume certainly is. So if it's something you love and you've got the skills and the chops and the microphone and all that stuff, then, why not? Why not give it a go? It's not like you're not taking money from AAA voiceovers, with the strike that's on right now and stuff. It's a completely separate beast.
It makes me think of automotive to a degree, that with automotive does not pay GVAA commercial rates, but you make your money in automotive strictly through the volume, because some of these spots are only running for a weekend or a week, maybe a month at best. But if you get on with the dealership who's creating new spots every month, you make your money in volume. It sounds like there's an opportunity to do that to a degree, because like with these indie games, right? It's not like they're all going to be number one selling games for Xbox or whatever. And so you have to take that into consideration. But it's interesting how it came about. And I just really thought it was a fun way to look at things, because I think it's something that we don't think about or have never thought about before, is trying a collaborative approach, or, this profit share concept. I mean, we see it in other genres. Why not think about it in video games? So the other thing I wanted to ask you about is Nimble.
Oh yeah, I haven't heard of it. I love Nimble.
Man, everybody, if you say Nimble in the voiceover community, I think probably by default I'm associated with it, but that's just because I've introduced everybody to it. But if there was ever a Nimble power user in the voiceover community to have a conversation with, his name would be Michael. And if you could catch him between tacos, and now you can catch him between tacos, because Nimble's doing all the heavy lifting, because you have just embraced everything about workflows and automations and sequences. And
yeah, I love it. I mean, I don't really enjoy sending emails, so I pay Nimble to do it. I mean, I don't want this to sound like an advert, but yeah, I love it. Like, I went out to work this morning. When I came home, Nimble had sent 250 emails for me today.
That's amazing.
Today.
250 emails in a single day. Now, is that a normal day for you? 250?
No. It was just the magic time of the month when all the email, the contacts aligned.
How many automated emails would you say on average are you sending through Nimble in a month?
Hundreds.
Oh, ballpark.
Hundreds. Maybe 300, 400, probably more. I don't think I've ever counted. But what I do know is when I go into my sent on my Gmail, does it in like racks of 50. And so I just go, how many is it? And then I'll be like, wow. So maybe more. I haven't hit the Nimble limit, where they very kindly prorate the emails to charge you. Such a nice thing. So many companies would be like, 50 quid, please. Whereas, it's $25 a month, $35 a month, and keeps all my contacts, and it emails them when I asked them, and I've got like 10 or 12 sequences going, which is why there's so many and what have you. But yeah, I
So
absolutely love
how
it.
are you using these sequences then? Are these follow-up sequences? Is it prospects? Is it clients? Is it leads? Is it a combination of all the things? What kind of workflows are you? What are your couple of your favorite workflows that you've got running right now?
Couple of my favorite workflows. I'm asked that question all the time, Mark. Um, but I mean,
I came here to talk about video games. What is this?
but I mean, so when I find a prospect, I'll send them a nice personalized email, as
Yep.
Mark Scott taught me to do.
Good.
And then,
Good.
and then I'll, and then, as a British person who's worried about offending people with my presence and emails, I stick them on a follow-up list. So the follow-up emails start 7 days from when I send the personalized one, and then it will just uh, check in with them, send emails about pain points and what have you for the next year, and I don't have to feel
Amazing.
guilty about it because I'm not really doing
Because
it.
it's all happening in the background and you're
It's all happening. I
completely
don't even know it's
oblivious to it.
happened, so it doesn't affect my sensibilities too much.
I love it. The ability to, I mean, sequences was a game-changing feature for me in Nimble. Like I've always loved it, but the idea that not that long ago, like a few months ago, I had to write the introductory email and then I had to set a reminder, manually create a reminder to send a follow-up. And then a week later, I'd have to remember to go in and manually send the follow-up and then manually create another reminder to manually send another follow-up a week later and like go through that whole process. And now to have all of that fully and completely automated, like spend an afternoon, write a sequence, and now boom, done. I don't have to think about it
Yep.
anymore. It's pretty spectacular.
I mean, set and forget is so, I think, really important in this business. Otherwise, you're just hung up on every email you send.
Yep.
And so when I was setting reminders and such before to go in, copy and paste the template into the blah, 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 every time I was like, maybe this one, as you do. And, but now it is literally set and forget. I got a job that, is hopefully locked in for next week. And I sent 2 emails to their generic, and then I sent 6 emails in my sequence to the correct person, having found them. And then booking just after Christmas. And
So 8 emails in total.
yeah, 2
What
misguided
are
emails.
what are the odds that without the automation, what are the odds realistically that you ever send a lead 8 emails?
Oh, slim to none. No chance of
But
me doing that, really. I think I'd feel sick by the 5th one.
yep.
So to have it do that, I mean, I don't know if I'd even get to the 5th, but just to be able to put it in the process and be like, right, I've got other stuff to do now,
Yep.
is amazing.
Yep.
For the price is nuts. Like
Now,
you can't pay a VA to do that.
do you see at this point how you feel about your results? Better, worse, same as from when you were doing it manually?
Better for sure.
Yep.
For sure better. Am I seeing the results I would love? Not, maybe not, but I'm seeing results.
But you're seeing more results than what you were seeing before, right? Because those extra follow-ups.
Those extra follow-ups for sure. I mean, I've been doing those sequences for maybe 6-7 months now. So some of them aren't even on their 5th email.
Yep.
So like, and it just feels good to be like, if you find an email, 50 prospects a month, 25 prospects a month, to know that there's stuff in place to contact them for the next 12 is ridiculous. I mean, and talk about working voiceover part-time, trying to get to full-time. That is a route to it,
Yeah, for the whatever $25 or $30 a month that you're going to pay for Nimble, like you're not finding an assistant that's going to work for that price.
Absolutely not. And you can work full time, and while you're at work, have Nimble send 250 marketing emails.
Yep, it's pretty awesome.
I mean, they better send me some. They don't send you any money for this.
I'll talk to them and see if I can get you a T-shirt or something.
Yeah, say you know the British e-learning voiceover guy.
So I want tell us about the game again. I mean, I know you mentioned the name of it, but give us the sales pitch for, where to find it, approximately when we're going to find it, that whole thing, so that people can keep an eye out for it.
Sure. Well, hopefully, thousands of people will go to Steam, which is the
Okay.
PC platform that
Yep.
it'll be distributed on, and they'll wish list it. That would be the dream
Ooh,
scenario.
there you go. There's the pro tip.
And that will keep you up to date on everything that's coming out. It'll allow you
Yep.
to get involved in early access. It'll give
Awesome.
you loads of wonderful trailers featuring my voice. And it's hopefully going to be coming out around the 15th of March.
Okay.
And it's a God sim, a spiritual successor to Black and White.
Okay. Well, I will make sure that we put that information in the show notes so that it is easy
Thanks.
for people to find. Michael, thank you for coming and sharing your story, because
My
I
pleasure.
think it's going to get people to think about things differently. And I mean, we talked about this from the perspective of gaming, but honestly, the model has merit in just about any genre. I think there's probably ways that you could work something like that, particularly from a startup standpoint, right? Working with startups, you want to be a brand voice for somebody right out of the gate or something like that, and they don't have any money at the beginning to hire a voice, and so you do some sort of profit share or equity deal or something like that. It's just a really different approach. It's thinking like a VOpreneur, man.
Lovely
Way to represent
stuff.
the brand. I appreciate it. Now you're going to want a T-shirt from me too.
No, I should have worn my hoodie. It would have been incredibly sycophantic of me.
Well, Michael, this has been great. I certainly do appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing that story and helping us to get thinking about things from a different perspective.
My pleasure, Mark. Thanks for all you do raising up the VO community.